Michael. Oh, Stephen Lang. Paul Pipitone. Mark Osborne. Stuart Hingston. David Bellani. Paul from the Necklace Workshop. 624 Dudley. Dan Shed, g'day. What's happening? Apparently it's not dark. What exciting things are happening? Not very much. Oh gosh, I've got junk here everywhere. Sorry, guys. Same as always. I had a fairly busy weekend in the workshop, and then I remembered when I was getting to live stream that I promised Chirpy that I'd have a look at Pantograph Engraver with him tonight, but he hasn't turned up. He must have gone to bed, so that's all right. We'll probably do that anyway. Yeah, Stephen Stones are excellent. Get yourself a pair. Go out now and do yourself a favour, in the words of the great Molly Meldrum. Not much to report as far as progress. I messed around with this, just fine-tuning it. Like that. It's actually upside down. Anyway, it's half inside out. I'll put that together. Morning, Murray. So that works. Video to follow on some of the things and getting it fine-tuned. I've actually put nylon inserts in here as lock nuts. See that? So basically it's nylock insert into the thread where these screw in so they don't unscrew. And it's got 4 screws. Have a look at that. It probably could do with a little bit more fine adjustment. It's actually loose. So whether it's still working loose or whether I just haven't tightened it up, I don't know. But probably just haven't tightened it up, or something's moved. Yeah, the Loctite bushes are moving. That's what the problem is. That's not much good. So I might have to do something better than that. We'll see how we go. But still a work in progress. There we go. It's getting there. It's not a gyroscope. Stuart hasn't got ice cream yet. It's probably in the same sort of field as a gyroscope as far as it's sort of an educational toy. And that's about the level we're working at. But don't know. We'll find out. But these are a nice tight fit here, so they're not going to come out. However, looks like that one's probably moving in there where I Loctited it, so we might have to do a job on that. We're getting there. This is only the first real set of pivots, so we're just as an experimental thing. They haven't moved any. It's this one here is moving. don't know, have a think about that. Anyway, that's sort of a work in progress. It's getting there. So far it's working out. Hey Raymond, tea and biscuits, g'day. Hey Chirpy. Secret gimbal wobble device, yep. Peter had apple pie. That's awesome. Might even mess with this tonight and fix it. This one's coming out. So whether it just wasn't clean enough or whether there's actually an issue. Now that's going to worry me all night. Yep, no focus on live stream. I've got a problem here. Don't know why that's moved, because it ain't moving now. Certainly not going back in there. Yeah, things probably aren't long. And my Loctite primer got thrown in the bin because it's run out of propellant, or it's run out of gas, or it's run out of Loctite primer or something. So I might have to buy a new tin of that. It probably just needs a good degrease. That's sort of spent all weekend making little bits for that and more bits on, and there's another video I half made, so I'm not going to show you too much, but sort of got it all half working. There's a lot more bits in it than I really had calculated originally, but we'll have to get a bit of a wriggle on. But anyway, Chirp, you wanted to look at this. Don't know why. This has got a bit of a story attached. I guess everyone knows the story. I bought this. Well, I didn't buy it. It was a gift. I was approaching the vendor to make an offer to buy it at the Summer Bash Swap Meet in 2017, something like that. With a view to asking how much he wanted for it, because I had a little bit of cash in my pocket, and I thought, well, I ought to have that, and it's not a crazy big machine to get home or anything like that, maybe, which was stupid talk in hindsight. But John Marcus actually, who's the guy who makes the hardness testers, he pushed in line and said, hey, look, how much is that? And handed the guy a wad of 50s and 100s and took it. Without even, he had it in the car before I got back to talking to the guy who had it. Anyway, that's all right. I thought that's a good thing. I missed out on that. And anyway, 2 years later, he came up to me and said, hey, look, do you still want that little Pantograph Engraver? I haven't really done anything with it. We've gone a different direction. They've installed CNC. And it's yours if you want it. It's here. Unload it out of the car and take it with you. Which I did. And then I had to get it home because it's fairly heavy. So I shipped it back, and some awesome friends shipped it back. And got home, and I did a bit of work on it and sort of got it half up and running, and it's got some problems. So that's where we're at with it. Sort of been a joint sort of a job But I made this platen for it because the platen was missing off the front, which is basically 2 brass blocks screwed onto a block of aluminium. It's still got the blue on the bottom of it with 2 dovetails in it to fit the letters. And that just slides up and down there. Then the letters all fit in there because I've got heaps of letters. They're a pretty nice fit. You've got to sort of negotiate a bit with the letters because some of them are fat and some of them are thin and they're all different sets. I've sort of got them worked out, but not particularly well. See, and I made some little brass plates to go in there like that to lock them in place, and these have got 3D printed handles on grub screws, so they're pretty good. And we can set this up somewhere near the middle. Maybe. And lock it in place, and then you've got your template in place, and you've got 2 lines, which are probably not a particularly good spacing or anything else, but there we go. Hey, Kevin. Hey, James P. Well, that's the theory, and I sort of thought about that. You could 3D print some custom templates and things and do logos and things like that too. And that's the idea, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I've had a bit of a fiddle with it and not really had a lot of action. This is the original vice for it, which is kind of somewhere between bad and awful. It's not bad, but it's got a lock on this side. And it's got a handle on this side for the vise. These jaws really aren't the answer. If you've got something you want to engrave, locking it in here really isn't particularly satisfactory, to be honest. So this could do with some work as far as the actual engraving bench. For bigger flat surfaces, it's probably all right. But if we have a look, this has got tapped holes in here. So the theory is we could set up the Sherline rotary table or a V-block or some clamps or something like that and do some of that sort of work. Anyway, potentially it's quite good, and the table and the hold down surface and everything's probably all right. This is not particularly well adjusted. The new one's much better than this. And maybe it needs a new, I don't know, maybe it needs a new vise as well or something. I'm not sure. So this never had a motor on it when I got it, and Cam at Battler was awesome and said, "Hey, look, I've got a Gravograph motor." So he sent this up, which sort of works. It's got adjustment here, so that you can, and it's got adjustment here. So it's a pretty ordinary adjustment actually. You can move the back up here. If you've got a higher workpiece, then you move the back up and the stylus down and get it somewhere near level. And as far as cut, it relies on rocking like that. And then you've got to adjust this. Which is average. So that we can put a row of writing on there like that, see? Which sort of works with a cutter. This has got a micrometer head on it, so you can move that up and down as well. But probably this cutter head could do with some adjustment or a new set of bearings or something. I don't know what's involved in that. And the motor's spring-loaded against this little belt, which is sort of okay. This belt gets a wobble in it. Did you see that? Everyone see that? It gets a wobble in it at a certain speed. We'll watch that again. There, see? And then over that speed, it picks up and runs pretty good. So realistically, the motor and drive's pretty good. The spindle could do with some adjustment and modification and messing around. That actually just lifts out of there. And it's got a bit of a noisy bearing there, so probably we should fix that at some point. And that's just got a collet there with the 8th collet for engraving tool. And it's got a fine thread there and a threaded cap, so basically you can just screw that down where you like and then do it up, and it's your depth set. Morning, Darren. Hope you and the cat are both okay after your ordeal. Was it? So this is probably not a bad machine. Now, the issue is in here. And as far as I can see, this is about the only part that really needs serious work. It's not particularly well designed and probably could be improved. See, all this is a shoulder screw, and this has got a nice, smooth, half reasonable fit. And this has got a half reasonable fit in there as well, where it screws in down onto the shoulder as well. That should work. This one here has got a bit more backlash in it, and there's a bit of a problem with that. Never managed to get these out. I don't know what's holding it in place, this one. This one seems to be a bit worn too. This has got some wobble in it. This one and this one are probably all right. So you can set this to different, if you want to set this to, say, different ratios. So you hook this up to B and B, something like that, rather than H or further down. But it's not particularly adjustable. That's the thing. You only got very set sizes of letters, which is probably all right too. So if you set this over here, B and B and so whole B and whole B. Then you've got a much bigger letter. It's not 1-to-1, but it's sort of bigger than 2-to-1 in the highest. The highest setting. I don't think that's quite right how I've set that up anyway. So that sort of works. Now, for improvement, there are things that it could have. All right. This just had these two bolts in here. I'm going to do this. Sorry, guys. Apologies. Just had this bolt in here with a nut on the top and the bottom, and this had quite a lot of wobble in it, like probably 1/8 of an inch in here. And what I've ended up doing is setting this up and putting a taper in it, and then putting a tapered bush on each end. So instead of having that much wobble, which was a problem, it's now locks nicely on two tapers, and it's fixed that problem. What I need to do is fix this point here that it pivots, and this point here that it pivots, and then I think it would be a half decent machine. The other thing it really wants, if we have a look at the back of it, is that we've got this rod goes up and down here, and if we went to the trouble of getting an actual spanner for this, we wouldn't be so lazy. And I apologise to everyone's sensibilities. I'm going to do it. Too late. Look at that. Sort of a bit less of a compromise, maybe. See, this just free falls up and down. which is sort of all right, but it's sort of not good, because you've got to lock this in place and expect it to be somewhere near. And if you're only cutting 10 thou deep, it's a lot of messing around. That's a really nice idea, Darren. No, I haven't. What RPM does the motor run? Good question. It's a Gravograph motor, pretty quick. Something in me wants to think 16, 17,000 RPM, something like that. So this needs, or what would be awesome here, and maybe it's sort of a system there to do it and I just don't know about it. I don't think so though. But what would be very good is some screw adjustment on here so that you could slide this up and down. So if you made like a lock collar here with a screw on it and a jack and a pin in here, something like that. Even you use a T-bar to move it up and down or something like that, or even a thread up the middle with a big hand wheel, or I haven't got a clue. You could thread the outside of it perhaps and put a wheel on it, or you could put a jack underneath it. Something like that. What horsepower? I can tell you that. That's actually written on here. Except it's not. It hasn't ever been cut into the plate. It says 240 volts. And the rest blank. I've honestly got no idea. I guess if you went to the Gravograph website, you might find that information. You could use some sort of, you could use a stencil of some sort. The trouble is that they don't meet up in the middle and they've got problems. These brass letters are good. I've got 3 sets of brass letters. So ideally, this needs fixing. The other issue with it is that it sort of moves backwards and forwards. So while this is very good, if you have this moves around here like this, it rocks sideways, and that's a problem. So I'm thinking that this here should be done up tight, and maybe that's just come loose. Yeah, there you go. But some sort of a adjustment system in here would be fantastic. And see, this is below average, to be honest. And that's on the centre there, and that should be straight there like that. But if we do this nut up too far, that pulls around sideways again. So if this cradle here is square to the work, like it should be, then there's no problems with it tipping over or cutting to different depths or anything like that. You do at some point, if you have this too high and this too low, you have letters that aren't cut evenly across the width. So it cuts. We put this back here where it sort of lines up. What you find is that it'll cut less deep on the top and deeper on the bottom, or the other way around, depending on where this is set. So I guess there's probably a way to set it up. But and if you set that somewhere near level and then put a tool in there and get that sticking out the right amount so that it just touches, then you can grind, well, you can move this down however many thou for a cut. And probably it's fairly straightforward. But to my mind, it's still a long way off being as nice as I'd like. If anyone's got any thoughts about that, I've never managed to get these apart. I think they're just pressed in. And this one's... If we have a look, this one here has got sort of a lock nut on here that's probably a little bit adjustable to get some of this out of here. But there's a little bit of rock in here, and I don't like that much, because by the time you get it's got an accumulated error all the way through. So anyway, that's the state of play with the Pantograph Engraver that everyone's been asking about. Everything needs to be set up and squared and organised, and I think if you get used to it and use it enough, probably it's capable of doing some really good work. But it's never had that and as far as doing rotary work and pen work, it's really not the machine for that. Whereas the Engraving is sort of, it's a good enough machine that they've made enough of to actually get half reasonable results out of for some of that work. I still wouldn't like to be doing pen work on a Engraving, but there are people that do it and do good work with them time and time again. I've seen good work done with them. How long are the arms? We'll get a ruler. Not very long. This will be in inches because it's one of those stupid American machines. It looks like they're about 6-inch centres. I guess this one's about the same, 6 inches. These are not hooked up right, is what they are. Not sure about that. I think I might have got these the wrong way around. They are marked, and I don't know what a decal or anything like that's got as far as a system. I've never really been close enough to one pulled apart to find out. At some point I'd like to do that, but yeah, I've got these the wrong way around. something's the wrong way around. No, that's the wrong way around, so that's where that should be. So these are square and parallel now. And that gives us, what does that give us? We'll put that under the centre there. That gives us, on that setting there, gives us about a 5mm letter, 4mm letter, something like that, I think. 3/16, a little bit less. 532, something like that. Which isn't a very big letter. And this setting here is about 4.5 to 1.5, something like that. So that's the ratio, which is 3 to 1, something like that. Is that right? 4.5 to 1.5, 3 to 1. If you go the other way, it's 1 to 3. So if we move this so that it's on the other ends and this is down this way, then we get, I think that's right. It's too late. I can't think of all that. You'll have to mess around with a couple of bits of cardboard, bits of paper. Best thing, I think, is to cut some little bits of plywood and bolt or screw them together and mess around and see how it works after you've made a table or something. How thick wide are the arms? These are about 3/4 square, something like that. You could just use CNC. You could buy a decent CNC engraver and that would fix it. However, to be honest, this will run rings round. If one of these is running properly, if you've got a Deckel or a Anderson or something like that, and it's running properly, and you've got an operator who knows how to use it, it'll run rings for one-off work. It'll run rings round a CNC machine, because you've got to do your artwork. You've got to put your artwork into the machine. You've got to download the artwork to the machine. You've got to do a trial run. You've got to find your centre of your plates. You've got to find the centre on the drawing. You've got to make sure that the two are somewhere near calibrated together. And then you've got to cut your work. And you've still got to guess and measure and set up your offset and all that sort of thing, whereas this is in real time. So if it's running properly, it's a matter of clamping the job up, setting the ratio, and getting that, especially just on plates. Getting your letters put in and basically cutting them. And job's done. And if you've got 30 plates to do and they've all got different messages on them, it's just a matter of slotting your letters around and going for it. So it's much, much easier and quicker than running a CNC engraving machine, which is kind of an awful thing, because 9 times out of 10, any entry-level CNC engraving machine has Chinese software that you can't operate without being able to read or at least have some idea of Chinese characters. And it's only as good as its weakest link. We got one at work that's got a bad driver board, and every now and again the X or the Y axis just doesn't run properly. So you end up with a job that's stuffed up. And that's all right on disposable boards. After a bit it gets a bit thin, but if you're just got cut boards that you're doing the same work over and over and over again, and it's sort of all right. But when you're engraving jewellery and stuff, at least with this, you can jack the tool up, you can go over it, make sure it's within your tolerances on your pen marks, move everything a bit, or on your pen marks on if you're engraving a flask or a credit card holder or a piece of silver dog tag or something, you can at least check the perimeters of your work. If you've marked it out already with the text, so you can sort of, or with a pen, you can sort of work that out. And when move it up or down or whatever if you need to, and then when you go to cut your letters, you've got it right. So to my mind, if you're doing a lot of plate and like powerboard work, that sort of thing, which is where a Engravograph really excels, a Engravograph for that sort of work is way, way better than anything that's made by operated by CNC. And that's why Engravograph still, the Hermes Engravograph still commands a crazy price. They're still available new for about $2,500 to $3,000 Australian. You just go and buy one. And whether that's a path is to buy a decent or to inherit a Engravograph off a friend who might be downsizing, or whether I actually buy a second-hand machine, or whether I believe that there would be work for a machine like this if you had it up and running, but I'm not sure this is the machine to do that work. Put it that way. A decent top-of-the-range Engravograph is a pretty awesome machine for that sort of work. I have this business idea or I had for a long time this business idea for an engraving business, and it's sort of my business, I guess. Anyway, we do a lot of hand engraving, like a crazy amount of hand engraving at work, and a bit of CNC stuff, but mostly hand engraving, which is cheap and quick and easy and fast, you know, whether it's impact or rotary. It's very easy to draw something out by hand, and when it looks great, just trace your letters and get half reasonable results that sell, and that's a good money earner. However, there's this whole untapped field with this particular machine, or with a pantograph, because there's 1,000 switchboard and cable identification plates, things like that, 2.4 metre clearway, things like that no one's going to buy a box of stickers to do because they only need one plate. And a lot of them are available in Bunnings and places like that. Plastic plates are not drinkable water, and electrical outlet, and don't close the gate, and all that sort of stuff. But in the hardware stores, and they're fairly cheap. But a half decent plastic plate to a special requirement that you could have out the door the next day, or for pickup in the next day, I think there's a market there for that business still. So having said that, if I had $5,000 to spend on an engraving machine, I wouldn't go and buy a Engravograph. I'd go and buy a Graver Max or impact engraving machine, because a decent one of them, you're not doing jobs for $15 each. You're doing jobs for $500 each. And if you're a little bit artistic, then you can do nice work. So I don't know. Engraving it's nice to get this set up and running and get it working, but in all honesty, I'm sort of got to the point that I was chasing errors and working out what was wrong. And if you've got 0.5 millimeter backlash on a 4 millimeter letter, like 20 thou backlash on a 200 thou letter, that's enough that you're going to end up with a nasty sort of second strike, and that makes everything look crap. Yuri does some awesome stuff. Clickspring does some awesome stuff. There's a few really good channels that do really good work. And there's a couple of girls on Instagram that do really, really amazing work, impact engraving. But to do nice work, you need good gear, and good impact engraving gear is expensive. You can go and Google it one day, it's expensive. So, and this is a capable machine. It's capable of doing good work, and I'd like to have it set up for things like machine dial engraving, that sort of thing, that there's no other real good way to do it. You can't make money on one of these with the pet tags. I mean, I can hand engrave a pet tag in about 30 seconds, right? Start to finish. Name, telephone number, Gold Coast City Council number on the other side. No layout, no nothing. I just sit down and print it out, and sit down and start at one end side of the plate and start at the centre of the telephone number and get it all nicely balanced, and the job's done. And it takes me less than a minute, well under a minute, to do a dog tag. So sitting down and messing around with a machine like this to set it up is just pointless, unless you've got it set up for one size dog tag all the time. That's a bit flash, Darren. Yeah, you can make. I mean, if you're quick and good with the machine, there's work that it'll do, absolutely. But dog tags isn't what that work is. It couldn't take this to work and expect to competitively make dog tags with it, because I'd just be messing all day to do 3 dog tags at this point. But there is work that you could use it for, but most of that work we would use the CNC machine for anyway. So this spindle was probably just needs oil, I don't know. It's just got pretty crappy sealed bearings in it by the feel of it. The collet's sort of crap. So really don't even know how to get that apart, but I'm guessing that this comes off here. And then this shaft taps down through here and pops this bearing out. And I don't know what's inside here, and I'd be suspicious that I really don't want to find out. But probably some lube on that would make a big difference to the way it runs. Cutters for it. Should have got them out before I started. I've got no idea where cutters are. I do have cutters for it. And I've got a D-bit grinder, so that's kind of the machine that was designed for making cutters for this. A fairly straightforward thing to make cutters for. And you probably just run a ball end mill or something like that, but it's a bit severe and a bit inclined to grab, and not a particularly smooth thing usually with a cutter like that. So there you go. That's the Myco Instrument Company Pantograph Engraver. Whether that's of any real interest to anyone. I've got like Darren says, it probably would be smart to make letters that these actually slide pretty nice. I actually got through and made these so they do slide nice. There's a fair bit of work in that. Oh crap. That's the other issue, is that falls over. So I've got a set of standard wide letters, capitals. Which is probably pretty nice. What are these? It's a set of standard numbers. Wide and narrow. Narrow and wide, so a couple of different widths there, I think. Yeah, there's a wide one. And a narrow one. There's a set of narrow capitals and a lot of odd stuff like subscript and so forth. Things like arrows, and can anyone actually see that? I guess you can. Multiplication signs and punctuation and dashes and dots and commas, semicolons and things like that. Brackets. And a narrow set of letters. And the other set, a reverse set, which is kind of useful, I guess, for engraving on the back of transparent items, I guess, is probably where you would use those. So we've got some more clamps. We've got things like a reverse limited company, limited trading symbol. Things like the V, which aren't really reversible, or the O, but there's a backwards P. So that's a mirror set. So plenty of letters. Went through, and a few people really did me some favours on those too, and I got a couple of big tins of letters which I went through and cleaned up and machined them so they're all the same because they're from a few different machines. So now they all fit this platen. Anyway, these are 1032 screws, I think. There's a crazy American thread. This is crazy American, and that probably seems quite sensible. But these are here, so for alignment, that sort of thing, so you can put a couple of screws in there, wherever, and push your plate up against them before you lock them in place, and that way you're always getting it square. If you're doing plates the same size, well, that's repeatable, sort of. It's not the world's best system, but it sort of works. I think these would be better not round because they put a dent in your work, but actually loose, like with a jaw on here that swivels and it's quite wide and flat, so that it actually, you can clamp your piece in here. Or if you've got a round or an oval, you can clamp it in here and they'll go sideways, and you can put 2 screws in for the other side. So that's another improvement that would be quite doable. But all this is, if we have a look here, it's a bit of a nuisance. This has actually got nylock inserts in the bottom here where the screws bolt in, so that's what keeps everything tight and stops it moving and hanging around. This has got a slide on the motor for actual like tension, but I don't think that was really enough. So what I ended up doing was, if we have a look at this, was putting a lever out the back with a spring on it. So now it's actually spring loaded. This is probably not the world's best belt. Something a bit heavier might be better, but the Engraving probably had a flat belt by the look of that, and this is just a round or a V-belt pulley on the spindle. So that's what I've done. So it needs work. Still needs work. Sort of, potentially it's probably quite good looking at it, but it needs a lot of little bits. If you write down a list, there's probably a week's work on it to get it up and running nicely, get everything working properly. That's without even looking at these. I don't know, it sort of looks like it's probably got a grub screw in there. Which locks on basically a straight pin, I would say. So that this pin will just pop straight out, and then I think you're going to find that this plate and this plate are worn. So whether you bore them out and put another pin in it, or whether you put a taper in them and put something in it between it with a bolt so that it screws up on a taper, I'm not sure. Maybe you could put a taper in it with a spring between them, 2 tapers, one each end, and then put this through and put a nut on the other side, something like that. Don't know. Anyone with any thoughts, I'd be very happy to hear. I'm just talking to myself now. They're both probably very, very valid sort of Thanks, Darren. Chirpy, they're both all very valid points. The level and the knob on the front. This motor is way out there. It's less out the back than it was. Pictures of them that was out there on the end of that arm, which was kind of useless and off centre. Take care, Paul. Oh gosh, we're an hour down. Oh gosh, don't know where that went. On here, I don't know. I really don't know what the answer is there. It's obviously got, if we take this apart, it's got a lock nut or a place for a pry bar and a bolt there. Maybe that's on a thread. You could easily make another nut here with a thread to screw this up and put a tape on it for the bottom one and a taper on it for the top one. That's a thought too. That might work too. I'd love to have a look. I'd love to have a look at a decent quality German machine. See, it's got two tapers here, Adam, one there and one there. A taper on the bottom one and a taper on the top one. And that locks into a taper in each end of this bush. So I've unscrewed that and I put taper in each end and I put two tapered nuts on it. And when they screw up, they're on centre then. And this has got no rock in it. See, before it had a couple of millimetres. Anyway, potentially it's probably a pretty good machine. Getting that potential out of it easily is more of an issue, really. If this tube at the back was hollow, you could put a nut in the bottom of the base that this tube slides over, and you could put a hand wheel here and a hollow nut here, or a nut with no top on it, and put some sort of adjustment here to lift it up and down. But I don't know if that's much more mucking about than it's worth. Probably it is. So if I was going to mess around with it and get it going, first, the things that I'd really like to fix first before I even started doing any serious engraving with it is probably the vice jaws. I'd like to get the spindle a little bit quieter running. And I think I'd like to find the issue here and here and fix those. I think this is probably pretty good, really. I was thinking these were probably a bit worn, but they look good. And then from there, there's lots of fine tuning. A spirit level would actually be a pretty awesome thing to have on here somewhere, just on here. I think. How far apart are those holes on those? Oh gosh. Let's have a look again in black and white measurements, because it's an American machine, so I guess it's black and white. And a very useful ruler that's in 128ths. That's not doing it for me at all, sorry guys. We got this useless ruler. Look at this. This is a Starrett ruler, right? Now it's numbered this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the eighths or the measurements start from this end. So it goes 8, 16, 24, 34, 48, 55, 48, 56, and 64ths. So your 64ths are numbered back. Why is that? What? This one's numbered the right way in 30 seconds. Why are the 64ths numbered back to front on the ruler? What sort of a system is this? Anyway, if you can see that, but to answer questions, it looks like they're about half-inch centres. Hey, Matt. Might have been a misprint or something. It's a Starrett ruler. Well, on the other side, there's no measurements, right? This is just marks. But yeah, it's measuring from the other end on this side. So this end measures from this end. Flip it round, this one measures from this end too. So this is that way up, and that's also that way up, measuring from that end. Beats me. It's just a mystery. What have we missed? Not very much, really. There's never anything that you really miss. We don't take attendance because there's a pretty good chance that you won't have missed anything. Anyway, Mico, M-I-C-O, Mico Instrument Company, Pantograph Engraver. Probably was a really good machine at one point. If you were in the business of engraving cigarette cases, it might have been a really excellent thing to have. But, yeah. It would probably benefit from a shorter belt, so this motor moving back in a little bit. Don't know how you accomplish that. Managed to engrave half a dozen fountain pens today and not actually miss having one of these. But yeah, I don't know. Is it a grub screw in there? Let's have a look. Let's take it apart. We're getting on for time. We've got our black and white measurement Allen keys. It's not that big. That's 7/64 because we thought that was a good size to make an Allen key. And that one's 332. No, don't know what's there. It might have a roll pin across it. It's got a hole in the other side. No, it doesn't. So I'm guessing it's just a grub screw, or it might be missing. This has got vice grip marks on it where someone's tried to get it out at some point, which makes me wonder how effective I'm going to be at it. Some sort of vernier setting on these rather than actual marks, so you could adjust it a certain amount. Another thing that would be really good, and this never had, because this was made at a time when one-to-one engraving machines were kind of regarded with deep suspicion and asked why you ever need to actually copy someone's design or a banknote or whatever. Not that it's particularly applicable to this, but there's a reason it doesn't cut one-to-one size. But what would be really helpful is to have some fine adjustment here so that you could actually lock it and move it along and unlock it. Perhaps have these screws on a solid pivot that slides along the bar with a locking point so that you can adjust it infinite amounts. So if you think letter's just a fraction small, you don't have to go out to the next stop and pull the machine apart to do it. You've just got to slide it along on each side and get some sort of action on it. So, don't know. Just thinking out loud there. So it got stripped off and it got a coat of paint when it arrived, but it hasn't really had much other sort of particularly Darren, I'll be down for that. I'll be down for that sometime. Now you've said it, there's no getting back on it. Anyway, we would all like videos from Darren's workshop, but he's too busy. Wazza, you could just sell me your German pantograph. That's sort of more the language that we need to be talking. So I'm just putting that out there. Don't know if there's much else I can really add to this. We've dribbled along for an hour and a quarter, which is about a quarter of an hour longer than I'd or half hour longer than I'd sort of expected to. And I'm just laughing at Darren's message, but anyway, those who know Chirpy will know why. Anyway, that's kind of where we are. This needs a knob on it, absolutely. That would be fantastic with a big plastic knob on there or a big heavy brass knob or something like that. Yes, the magnification. Use Discord, you poor fish. Yes, it changes moving these holes changes the magnification. I think that's sort of maximum size. And if you go the other way, then it's minimum size. I can't really remember. We could try it. Been a while since some of this was put together. Probably needs a good clean up. Anyway. Don't know if that's changed it. I really don't. I'm sure there's a table somewhere that tells me how to set it up, but I can't remember now. I had to play with it once before. Anyway, Russell's out. Good to see you, Russell. I'm out too, I think. I've had enough. There's not very much happening. Where do you buy numbers? Gravergraph.com.au or hermes.com.au. I don't know what the website is. Look up Gravograph, Gravograbh. They still sell brand new letters if you can afford them. Anyway, I'm out. Take care. Be kind to each other, all that sort of stuff. And more soon. And there'll be another mystery project videos half recorded. So I'll have another one up next weekend, I guess. See how we go. Take care. Thanks, Chirp. Thanks, everyone. See you, Paul. And I'm out.